Hello and welcome. My name is Alan, and we are back with more Wealthy Monsters. As you can already see on the screen, we're going to talk about next on our list Warren Buffett. Now, according to Wikipedia's World's Billionaires 38 annual Forbes World's Billionaire list. I think I can try to remember World's Billionaires is what it's just called, the Wikipedia article. But in 2024, it has him at number 6, 2023, number 5, 2022, number 5, 2021, number 6, 2020, number 4, 2019, number 3, 2018, number 3, 17, number 2, 2016, number 3, 2015, number 3. Just giving y'all a look that he's always been up there as one of the richest guys in the world. He's not one of these fly by night who have shown up over the last little bit. Buffett's been there. He's been there for a while. The Bloomberg Billionaires Index. 10 richest billionaires covered by Bloomberg's Billionaire Index as of March 14th, 2025. Buffett, number 6. Though you look at him, one thing you'll notice, the age. All these men are of a certain age. Buffett is in his 90s. Far older than any of the other men on that list, in that particular Wikipedia article, the Bloomberg up-to-date list. So, he's been on there a long time. He is by far the oldest. I mean, you go back to the world's billionaires, age 2024, Buffett 93, no one close. 2023, Buffett 92. We have a couple guys in the 80s. 2022, Buffett 91. Yeah, no one else close in age. 2021, Buffett age 90. No one else close to his age. 2020, Buffett 89. Amancio Ortega was close. He only was 5 years separate, but the rest of them he was still over by quite a bit. So yeah, just showing you, he's been there a long time. The oldest billionaire on the list. Yeah. The Forbes real-time billionaire list. We have Warren Buffett, number 6. With his wealth going up. You look at the rest of them, down, 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 down. Ortega's going up, but yeah, Buffett. He's going up. He's always been a stable mark when it comes to billionaires. So, let's go ahead. That's why I forgot to pull up here. Not what I was wanting you to do. Warren Buffett. I was like, I know I'm missing a page. Britannica. There we go. What are you doing? Thank you. But Britannica, Warren Buffett. He was born August 30th, 1930 in Omaha, Nebraska in the U.S. American businessman and philanthropist, mostly widely considered the most successful investor in the 20th and early 21st centuries, having defied prevailing investment trends to amass a personal fortune of more than $100 billion. He is known as the Oracle of Omaha, just because he seems to know what will make money. Buffett was the son of a U.S. Representative, Howard Homan Buffett, from Nebraska. So his father was a politician. So it's not necessarily that he grew up poor. He grew up in a well-to-do family. After graduating from the University of Nebraska with a Bachelor of Science in 1950, he studied with Benjamin Graham at Columbia University School of Business to earn a Master's of Science in 1951. In 1956, he returned to Omaha and in 1965 took control of the textile manufacturer Berkshire Hathaway, which is the company he runs to this day, turning it into his primary investment vehicle. From the 1960s through the 90s, the major stock averages rose by roughly 11% annually, but Berkshire Hathaway's publicly traded shares gained about 28% per year. So he was more than doubling the averages of the stocks overall. Like I said, this is why he's called the Oracle of Omaha. He knew, he had seemed to have better sense on what would make money. Though Buffett's success with Berkshire Hathaway made him one of the world's wealthiest men, he eschewed lavish spending and criticized governmental policies and taxation that favored the rich over the middle or lower classes, which is one of the few reasons to give the man at least respect. He's not just a greedy ass. He makes money, but he's like, why be an egregious ass in spending it? In June 2006, Buffett announced that he planned to donate more than 80% of his wealth to charitable foundations. In 2020, he raised that amount to 99%. The main recipient was the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, created by Microsoft founder Bill Gates and then-wife Melinda, which focused on issues of world health and education. Gates and Buffett had maintained a close friendship since the early 1990s. The other organizations receiving donations included those run by Buffett's three children, and the Susan Thompson Buffett Foundation, named for his late wife, which focused on women's reproductive rights and funded college scholarship programs. In 2010, Buffett and the Gateses created the Giving Pledge, an invitation to other wealthy individuals to donate the majority of their fortune to charities. During the subprime mortgage crisis of 2007 to 2008, Buffett made a number of deals that, though questioned at the time, proved highly profitable. In September 2008, he invested $5 billion in the U.S.-based bank holding company Goldman Sachs Group. And the following month, Berkshire Hathaway purchased $3 billion in GE, General Electric, preferred stock. In November 2009, Buffett announced that Berkshire was buying the railroad company Burlington Northern Santa Fe Corporation for about $26 billion. The investment group already owned approximately 23% of the railroad. Berkshire Hathaway also had significant shareholdings in companies it did not control, including Coca-Cola and Apple. So yeah, and Berkshire Hathaway's this way. They own percentages in a lot of big name companies you wouldn't think of, but they do own percentage of them. If there's somebody, when it comes to investment strategies and practices to emulate, if you don't want to follow Paul Pelosi, because he seems to make all the right moves based on questionable information he seems to have, follow Buffett. But yeah, let's look at them through Wikipedia here. We talked about him going to University of Nebraska, Columbia University, also was at the University of Penn University, Pennsylvania. He was married to Susan Thompson Buffett, who would die in 2004. 2 years later, he would marry Astrid Manx Buffett. 3 children, Susan, Howard, and Peter. Susan Alice Buffett, Howard Graham Buffett, Peter Andrew Buffett. Howard Buffett, of course, was also the name of his father. Let's see. Let's get down here to early life and education. He was the second of 3 children and only son of Leela and Howard Buffett, who we already talked about. Howard Buffett was a U.S. representative for Nebraska. He began education at Rose Hill Elementary School. In 1942, during World War II, his father was elected to the first of 4 terms of the U.S. Congress. And after moving with his family to Washington, D.C., Warren finished elementary school, attended Alicedale Junior High School, and graduated from what was then known as Woodrow Wilson High School in 1947. His senior yearbook picture: likes math, a future stockbroker. Turns out, yeah. Finishing high school and finding success with his side entrepreneurial investment ventures, Buffett wanted to skip college to go directly into business, but was overruled by his father. Let's see. Much of Buffett's early childhood years were enlivened with entrepreneurial ventures. In one of his first business ventures, Buffett sold chewing gum, Coca-Cola, and weekly magazines door to door. He worked in his grandfather's grocery store. While still in high school, he made money delivering newspapers, selling golf balls and stamps, and detailing cars, among other means. On his first income tax return in 1944, Buffett took a $35 deduction for the use of his bicycle and watch on his paper route. So he's already marking off things that he's using in his business on his taxes. So yeah, bicycle and paper and watch, because he used them to make money on his paper route. In 45, as a high school sophomore, he and a friend spent $25 to purchase a used pinball machine, which they placed in the local barbershop. Within months, they owned several machines in 3 different barbershops across Omaha. They later sold the business to a war veteran for $1,200. His father took interest in cultivating and educating the young Warrens' curiosity surrounding the subject of business and investing, even taking him to the New York Stock Exchange when he was at 10 years of age. At 15, he would make more than $175 monthly delivering Washington Post newspapers. In 1947, Buffett matriculated at the Wharton School of Business in the University of Pennsylvania. He would have preferred to focus on his business ventures, but enrolled due to the pressure from his father. He studied there for 2 years and joined the Alpha Sigma Phi fraternity, transferred to the University of Nebraska, where he graduated with a bachelor's in science and business administration. After being rejected by Harvard Business School in 1950, he enrolled in Columbia Business School at Columbia University. That was a big screw up by Harvard upon learning that Benjamin Graham taught there. He earned a Master of Science in Economics from Columbia in 1951. So yeah, this is apparently somebody he admired as far as financial thinking, because the guy was a financial analyst, economist, accountant, investor. So yeah, he also was a professor at Columbia University. After graduating, Buffett would attend the New York Institute of Finance. And they have a quote from Buffett here. The basic ideas of investing are to look at stocks as business, use the market's fluctuations to your advantage, and seek a margin of safety. That's what Ben Graham taught us. 100 years from now, they will still be the cornerstones of investing. Buffett would work from 51 to 54 at his father's firm, Buffett, Falk and Company, as an investment salesman. 1954 to 56 at Graham Newman Corp as a securities analyst, and 1956 to 1969 at several investment partnerships as a general partner, and from 1970 as chairman and CEO of Berkshire Hathaway Incorporated. In 1951, Buffett would discover that Graham was on the board of Geico Insurance. He would actually go to Geico's headquarters and bang on the door until he was able to speak with someone. He would meet Lorimer Davidson, Geico's vice president, and the two discussed insurance business for hours, and Buffett made his first purchase of Geico's stock. Davidson would eventually become Buffett's lifelong friend and a lasting influence, and would later recall that he found Buffett to be an extraordinary man after only 15 minutes. Buffett wanted to work on Wall Street, but both his father and Ben Graham urged him not to. He offered to work for Graham for free, but Graham refused. Buffett returned to Omaha and worked as a stockbroker while taking a Dale Carnegie public speaking course. Dale Carnegie, American writer and teacher of courses of self-improvement. Okay. Using what he learned, he felt confident enough to teach the investment principles night class at the University of Nebraska, Omaha. Average age of the students were more than twice his own. During his time, he also purchased a Sinclair gas station as a side investment, but it was unsuccessful. In 1954, Buffett accepted a job at Ben Graham's partnership. His starting salary was $12,000 a year, about $141,000 today. There he worked closely with Walter Schloss. Graham was adamant that stock picks should provide a wide margin of safety after weighing the trade-off between the price and their intrinsic value. In 1956, Benjamin Graham retired and closed his partnership. At this time, Buffett, who had amassed personal savings over $174,000, about $2.1 million today, decided to return to Omaha, where he would quickly start a series of investment partnerships. All right, we're picking back up. In 1957, Buffett operated 3 investment partnerships, which by 1959 had grown to 6. That summer, Buffett would actually be introduced to his future partner for Berkshire Hathaway, Charlie Munger, during a business luncheon at the Omaha Club. So yeah, when you think Berkshire Hathaway, people often think of Buffett, but there actually was a second half of what was a partnership to make that company huge, Berkshire Hathaway, and that was Charlie Munger. Buffett in 1961 revealed that 35% of the partnership's assets were invested in the Sanborn Map Company. He explained that their stock sold only $45 or sold for $45 per share in 1958, but the company's investment portfolio was worth $65 per share. This meant that Sanborn's map business was being valued at minus $20. Buffett eventually purchased 23% of the company's outstanding shares as an activist investor, obtaining a seat for himself on the board of directors and allied with other dissatisfied shareholders to control 44% of the shares. To avoid a proxy fight, the board offered to repurchase shares at fair value, paying with a portion of its investment portfolio. 77% of the outstanding shares were turned in Buffett had reaped a 50% return on investment in just 2 years. In 1962, Buffett became a millionaire with the success of his partnerships, which by then had grown to 11 entities and held in excess of $7,178,500, of which over $1,025,000 belonged to Buffett. At the start of the year, he merged the various partnerships into a single entity, Buffett Partnership Limited, which would then be his primary investment vehicle for the remainder of the decade. Buffett invested and eventually took control of a textile manufacturing company, Berkshire Hathaway. He began buying shares of Berkshire from Seabury Stanton, the owner, who he later fired. Buffett's partnerships began purchasing shares at $7.60 per share. In 1965, when Buffett's partnerships began purchasing Berkshire aggressively, they paid $14.86 per share, while the company had working capital of $19 per share. This did not include the value of the fixed assets, the factory and equipment. Buffett took control of Berkshire Hathaway at a board meeting and named a new president, Ken Chase, to run the company. In '66, Buffett closed the partnership to new money. He later claimed that the textile business had been his worst trade. He then moved the business into the insurance sector, and in 1985, the last of the mills that had been the core business of Berkshire Hathaway were sold. In a second letter, Buffett announced his first investment in a private business, Hochschild, Cone and Company, a privately owned Baltimore department store. In '67, Berkshire paid out its first and only dividend of 10 cents. In '69, Buffett liquidated the partnership and transferred their assets to his partners, including shares of Berkshire Hathaway. He lived solely on his salary of $50,000 per year and his outside investment income. In 1973, Berkshire began to acquire stock in the Washington Post, and Buffett would become close friends with Katharine Graham, who controlled the company and the flagship newspaper, and joined the board in 1974. In 1974, the SEC opened a formal investigation into Buffett and Berkshire's acquisition of Westco Financial due to possible conflict of interest. You know, back when they cared about such things. No charges were brought. In '77, Berkshire indirectly purchased the Buffalo Evening News for $32.5 million. Antitrust charges started, instigated by its rival, the Buffalo Courier-Express. Both papers lost money until the Courier-Express folded in 1982. Because, yeah, think about it. He has the Buffalo Evening News. He's got stock in the Washington Post. Yeah. In '79, Berkshire began to acquire stock in ABC, the American Broadcast Company. Capital Cities announced a $3.5 billion purchase of ABC on March the 18th, 1985, surprising the media industry as ABC was 4 times bigger than Capital Cities at the time. Buffett helped financed the deal in return for a 25% stake in the combined company. The newly merged company, known as Capital Cities ABC or Cap Cities ABC, was forced to sell some stations due to FCC ownership rules. The two companies also own several radio stations in the same markets. Capital Cities, American media company, founded in '85. It would be eventually acquired by Walt Disney. That's how they would attain ABC, which Disney still owns ABC at this point. In '87, Berkshire Hathaway purchased a 12% stake in Salomon Incorporated, making it the largest shareholder and Buffett a director. In 1990, a scandal involving John Gutfreund, former CEO of Salomon Brothers, surfaced. A rogue trader, Paul Moser, was submitting bids in excess of what was allowed by Treasury rules. Brought to Gutfreund's attention, he did not immediately suspend the rogue trader, and he would leave the company in August 1991. Buffett became chairman of Salomon until the crisis passed. In 1988, Buffett began buying the Coca-Cola Company stock, eventually purchasing up to 7% of the company for $1.02 billion. It would turn out to be one of Berkshire's most lucrative investments, and one it still holds. 98, Buffett would acquire Genray as a subsidiary in a deal that presented difficulties. According to the National Walk Investment website, underwriting standards proved to be inadequate, while a problematic derivatives book was resolved after numerous years and a significant loss. Genray later provided reinsurance after Buffett became involved with Maurice R. Greenberg at AIG in 2002. During 2005 investigation of accounting fraud case involving AIG, Genray executives became implicated. On March 15, 2005, the AIG board forced Greenberg to resign from his post as chairman and CEO after New York state regulators claimed that AIG had engaged in questionable transactions and improper accounting. So yeah, February 9, 2006, AIG agreed to pay $1.6 billion fine. In 2010, the U.S. government agreed to a $92 million settlement with Genray, allowing Berkshire Hathaway subsidiary to avoid prosecution in the AIG case. In 2002, Buffett entered in $11 billion of worth of forward contracts to deliver U.S. dollars against other currencies. By April 2006, his total gain on these contracts was over $2 billion. Buffett announced in June 2006 that he would gradually give away 85% of Berkshire holdings to 5 foundations in annual gifts of stock starting in July 2006, the largest contribution going to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. In 2007, in a letter to shareholders, Buffett also announced that he was looking for a younger successor or perhaps successors to run his business ventures. So he's not doing like a lot of rich people do and just automatically hand it over to the kids. He's like, look, I'm looking for someone worthy that can handle the empire. So, yeah. Buffett ran into criticism during the subprime mortgage crisis of 2007 and 2008, part of the Great Recession, starting in 2007, that he had allocated capital too early, resulting in suboptimal deals. By American, I am, he wrote an opinion piece published in the New York Times in 2008. Buffett called the downturn in the financial sector that started in 2007 poetic justice. Berkshire Hathaway suffered a 77% drop in earnings during the third quarter of 2008, and several of his later deals suffered large mark-to-market losses. On September the 23rd, 2008, and I'll have to stop here, I got a phone call. We're back again. I keep getting phone calls, sorry about that. On September 23rd, 2008, Berkshire Hathaway acquired 10% of the perpetual preferred stock of Goldman Sachs. Some of Buffett's put options, European exercise at expiry only, that he wrote sold, were running at around $6.73 billion of mark-to-market losses as of late 2008. The scale of potential loss prompted the SEC to demand that Berkshire produce a more robust disclosure of factors used to value the contracts. Buffett also helped Dow Chemical pay for $18.8 billion takeover of Roman Haas. But yeah, we talk about a number of different things he would take over and stuff. The guy clearly made some big money by making the right moves. So yeah. On his investment philosophy, Buffett's writings include his annual reports and various articles. Buffett is recognized by communicators as a great storyteller, as evidenced by his annual letters to shareholders. He has warned about the pernicious effects of inflation. So, yeah. Personal life. In 1949, he developed a crush on a young woman whose boyfriend had a ukulele. In an attempt to compete, he bought one of the instruments and has been playing it ever since. Though the attempt to capture her attention was unsuccessful, this music interest became a key part of his becoming part of Susan Thompson's life, although she passed away, and led to their marriage. Buffett often plays the instrument at stockholder meetings and other opportunities. His love of the instrument led to the commissioning of 2 custom Dairy Queen ukuleles by Dave Talsma, one of which was auctioned for charity. Buffett would marry Susan at Dundee Presbyterian Church. The following year, they would have their first child, Susan Alice. This was followed by Howard and then finally Peter in 1958. The couple began living separately in 1977, but they remained married until Susan's death in July 2004. Their only daughter, Susan, lives in Omaha and is a national board member of Girls Incorporated and does charitable work for the Susan A. Buffett Foundation. On his 76th birthday in 2006, Buffett married his longtime companion, Astrid Manx, who was then 60. She had lived with him since his wife's departure to San Francisco in 1977. Susan had arranged for the two to meet before she left Omaha to pursue her singing career. All three were close, and Christmas cards to friends were signed Warren, Susie, and Astrid. Susan briefly discussed this relationship in an interview on the Charlie Rose Show shortly before her death, a rare glimpse into Buffett's personal life. Buffett would disown his son Peter's adopted daughter Nicole in 2006 after she participated in the Jamie Johnson documentary, The 1%, the growing economic inequality between the wealthy and the average citizen of the United States. Although his first wife referred to Nicole as one of her adored grandchildren, Buffett wrote Nicole a letter stating, "I have not emotionally or legally adopted you as a grandchild, nor have the rest of my family adopted you as a niece or a cousin." By 2022, Buffett and she had reconciled. It's like, dude, look. I understand you try to be somewhat decent, be charitable, and you're going to give away all the majority, if not all, your fortune. But you still can't get angry because she's approached to talk about the truth. His annual salary was about $100,000 in 2006, which is small compared to senior remuneration in comparable companies. It is. $100,000 is surprisingly low compared to the way some other CEOs are paid. In 2008, he earned a total compensation of $175,000, which included a base salary of just $100,000. In 58, Buffett purchased a 5-bedroom stucco house in Omaha, where he still lives, for $31,500, equivalent to $352,658 in 2024. So still a pretty decent house, but it isn't these freaking mansions that are $1 million, $2 million. No, it's a decent fucking house. It's a good, but it's not like extravagant. He also owned a vacation home in Laguna Beach, California, which he purchased for $150,000 in 1971. He sold it for $7.5 million in 2018. In 1989, he would spend $6.7 million of Berkshire's funds on a private jet and name it the Indefensible, later renaming it the Indispensable. This act was at odds with his past condemnation of extravagant spending by other CEOs. Buffett sold the jet prior to mid-1999 and has since usually flown with Berkshire's flight services businesses. So while he has been known to spend big, in the end, it usually comes back to being like, some of the extravagance is ridiculous. He's an avid bridge player. Um, Dedicated lifelong follower of the University of Nebraska football team. Raised as Presbyterian, but since described himself as agnostic. Let's see. In April 2017, Buffett agreed to have his likeness placed on Cherry Coke products in China. Being an avid Coca-Cola drinker and shareholder in the company. He is distantly related to Barack Obama. Very distantly related, apparently. Buffett is a longtime friend of singer-songwriter Jimmy Buffett until Jimmy's death in September 2023. Often referring to each other as Uncle Ward and Cousin Jimmy. Although they share the same last name, there is no relation apparently. Health. Buffett is a teetotaler, meaning he does not touch alcohol. On April 11th, 2012, Buffett was diagnosed with stage 1 prostate cancer. But apparently he's been cleared of it. He did go through radiation treatment and everything. Wealth and philanthropy, as we talked about, he's already shown he's wanting to go ahead and donate his money. Give it away. He has written several times of his belief that in a market economy, the rich earn outsized rewards for their talents. His children will not inherit a significant portion of his wealth. He once commented, "I want to give my kids just enough so that they would feel that they could do anything, but not so much that they feel like doing nothing." He's given away much of his money already to the Gates Foundation. He's also pledged $50 million to the Nuclear Threat Initiative in Washington, where he began serving as an advisor in 2002. He auctioned his 2001 Lincoln Town Car on eBay to raise money for Girls Inc. 2007, he auctioned a luncheon with himself that raised a final bid of $650,100 for the Glide Foundation. Later auctions raised $2.1 million, $1.7 million, and $3.5 million. The winners traditionally dine with Buffett at New York's Smith and Wollensky Steakhouse. The restaurant itself donates at least $10,000 to Glide Foundation each year to host the meal. Let's see. In November 2022, Buffett made a donation of $750 million in Berkshire Hathaway shares to 4 charitable foundations run by his children. 1.5 million Class B shares of his conglomerate to the Susan Thompson Buffett Foundation, named after his first wife. He also transferred 300,000 Class B shares to 3 funds managed by his children, each managed by his children. The Sherwood Foundation, the Howard G. Buffett Foundation, and the Novo Foundation. As of 2023, Buffett has given over $50 billion to charitable causes. Class B shares or Class C shares is a designation for a share class of common or preferred stock that typically has strengthened voting rights or other benefits compared to the Class A share, which that may have been created. So Class B actually gives you some voting capability within the company, depending on how many of the shares you have, I guess. Politically, Buffett has endorsed and made contributions to Obama's presidential campaign. He intimated that John McCain's view on social justice were so far from his own that McCain would need a lobotomy for Buffett to change his endorsement. During the second 2008 U.S. presidential debate, McCain and Obama, after being asked first by presidential debate mediator Tom Brokaw, both mentioned Buffett as a possible future Secretary of the Treasury. Buffett was also a financial advisor to Republican candidate Arnold Schwarzenegger during the 2003 California gubernatorial election. He endorsed Hillary for president in December of 2015. August of 2016, he challenged Donald Trump to release his tax returns. October 2016, after a reference to him in the second presidential debate, Buffett released his own tax return where he said he had paid $1.85 million in federal income taxes in 2015 on the adjusted gross income of $11.6 million, meaning he had an effective federal income tax rate of around 16%. Buffett also said he had made more than $2.8 billion worth of donations last year. In response to Trump saying he was unable to release his tax information due to being under audit, Buffett said, "I have been audited by the IRS multiple times and am currently being audited. I have no problem in releasing my tax information while under audit. Neither would Mr. Trump. At least he would have no legal problem." So, yeah. Buffett described the health care reform under President Obama as insufficient to deal with the cost of health care in the U.S., though he supports its aim of expanding health insurance coverage. Buffett compared health care costs to a tapeworm, saying that they compromise U.S. economic competitiveness by increasing manufacturing costs. And Buffett said in 2010 that it was not sustainable for the U.S. to devote 17% of its GDP to healthcare expenditure, noting that many other nations spend a much smaller proportion of their GDP on health expenditures with better health care outcomes. Buffett said, if you want to be the very best, I mean, if you want to spend $1 million to prolong your life 3 months in a coma or something, then the U.S. is probably the best. But he also said that other countries spend much less and receive much more in healthcare value, visits, hospital beds, doctors, and nurses per capita. Buffett faults the incentives in the U.S. medical industry that payers reimburse doctors for procedures fee for service, leading to unnecessary care overutilization instead of paying for results. He cited Atul Gawande's 2009 article in New Yorker as a useful consideration of U.S. care, and with this documentation of unwarranted variation in Medicare expenditures between McAllen, Texas, and El Paso, Texas. Buffett raised the problem of lobbying by the medical industry, saying that they are very focused on maintaining their income. So yeah, he's one of these people that, even though he's immensely wealthy, he understands what things could be done to fix things. He's expressed concerns about unchecked population growth. He met with other billionaires to discuss healthcare, education, and slowing population growth. And they had given away $45 billion to philanthropic causes and included Oprah Winfrey, Michael Bloomberg, and David Rockefeller Jr. The meeting has drawn criticism from some right-wing blogs, with some believing the group to be part of a secret sterilization society. Oh, Lord! Buffett is a longtime supporter of family planning. The Buffett Foundation has given over $1.5 billion to abortion research, to include $427 million to Planned Parenthood. If you're running out of resources, does it make sense to keep pumping out a population to keep growing it? But you hear some of these conspiracy jackasses. They're trying to sterilize everybody. No, they're trying to help everybody. Cocksucker. Fucking uses the goddamn brain you don't have. Anyway. Buffett, taxes. Buffett has stated he only paid 19% of his income for 2006, while his employees paid 33% of theirs, despite making much less money. Regarding how little he pays in taxes compared to his employees, he said, "How can this be fair? How can this be right? There's class warfare, all right, but it's my class, the rich class, that's making war, and we're winning." After Donald Trump accused him of taking massive deductions, Buffett countered, "I have copies of all 72 of my returns, and none uses a carry forward." Yeah. Which, tax attractiveness index, I don't know, but yeah, anyway. He favors the inheritance tax, meaning, yes, When he dies, his successors who inherit his stuff must pay a tax upon it. There's a lot of rich people who don't like the inheritance tax. Buffett favors it, saying that repealing it would be like choosing the 2020 Olympic team by picking their eldest sons of the gold medal winners in the 2000 Olympics. In 2007, Buffett testified before the Senate and urged them to preserve the estate tax so as to avoid a plutocracy. Some critics have argued that Buffett, through Berkshire Hathaway, has a personal interest in the continuation of the estate tax, since Berkshire Hathaway benefited from the estate tax in past business dealings and had developed and marketed insurance policies to protect policyholders against future estate tax payments. Buffett believes the government should not be in the business of gambling or legalizing casinos, calling it a tax on ignorance. Dollar and gold. The trade deficit induced Buffett to enter the foreign currency market for the first time in 2002 and substantially reduce his stake in 2005 as changing interest rates increased the cost of holding currency contracts. Buffett remained bearish on the dollar, stating that he was looking to acquire companies with substantial foreign revenues. Buffett has been critical of gold as an investment. He was, with his critique being used primarily on its non-productive nature. Bearish, bullish, these are two terms for usually stock markets, but it could be buying investments. I forget which is which. Bearish. It's just mentioned as a market trend. Basically, one's like, hold on to what you got. Don't go purchase crazy. Or the other is like, buy, sell, buy, sell. So, yeah. It gets, but in 1998, at a Harvard address on gold, he says, it gets dug out of the ground in Africa or someplace. Then we mud it down, dig another hole, bury it again, and pay people to stand around guarding it. It has no utility. Anyone watching from Mars would be scratching their head. In 1977, about stocks, gold, farmland, and inflation, he stated, stocks are probably still the best of all the poor alternatives in an era of inflation. At least they are if you buy in at appropriate prices. They talk about his relationship with China, tobacco, coal, renewable energy, Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, COVID-19, film and television appearances on various news programs. He's been on a few television shows like All My Children, Entourage. I talk about some of his books. Oh yeah. In general, it's a pretty long look at Buffett. So yeah, Buffett's pretty interesting character. Um, very wealthy, but he had a lot of help to get there. But it's not without being aware of what's going on. Because he's like, look, for me to make so much more than my own employees and to not get taxed near as much is stupid. He's like, tax me, damn it. We have a link to Charlie Munger, who was Buffett's partner. Now, Berkshire Hathaway. They invest in a number of things: property and casualty insurance, reinsurance, rail transport, electric power, natural gas, real estate services, industrial parts and materials, mobile homes, building materials, recreational vehicles, apparel, retail stores and services, and aviation services. And they do fairly well. Um, do they show a list of what they own or have ownership in? Selected holdings, insurance companies, the Burke Business Insurance, Berkshire Hathaway Assurance, Central States Indemnity, Geico, and Genray. Railroad, BNSF Railway. I'm sure if some people might be aware of it because there have been commercials about BNSF. It keeps America moving. So, yeah. Utilities and energy. They own or own part of Berkshire Hathaway Energy, Home Services of America, and Pilot Flying J. Manufacturing. They own or have part ownership of Benjamin Moore and Company, Clayton Homes, CTV International, Duracell, Fruit of the Loom, Johns Manville, Lubrizol, Precision Cast Parts Corporation, Scott Fetzer Company. Yeah, we've got a number of big names in here. Benjamin Moore Paint Company, Clayton Homes. There used to be a Clayton Mobile Homes just down the road here. They're seller of manufactured and modular homes, the largest builder and manufacturer. And of course, Duracell batteries, Fruit of the Loom, making all kinds of undergarments. Services and retailing, Benbridge Jeweler, Business Wire, Dairy Queen, McLean Company, NetJets, Oriental Trading Company, Pampered Chef, See's Candies, Star Furniture, WPLG TV, ABC 10, Miami, Florida. So yeah, probably the biggest one in this list is Dairy Queen restaurant. Let's see. Aside from its subsidiaries, it manages a portfolio of non-controlling stock investments into which its insurance companies invest policy premiums. These holdings are broadly disclosed in its Form 13F filings, although the company sometimes obtains permission to keep active trades confidential. So, we have a look at the companies they own shares of and the share percentage. In finance and insurance, American Express, they own 21.6%. Bank of America, they own 8.9%. Moody's Ratings, they own 13.6%. Chubb Limited, they own 6.7%. Citigroup, they own 0.8%. Visa Incorporated, they own 0.4%. MasterCard, they own 0.4%. Capital One, they own 2%. Aon, they own 1.9%. Nubank, they own 0.8%. Ally Financial, 9.5%. Yeah, look at that. They credit card companies, Capital One, MasterCard, Visa, and American Express. Capital One is also a banking company, so it's probably more of a debit card, but still. But as far as banking, Bank of America, Citigroup, Capital One, New Banks, Ally Financials. Yeah. That's just finance and insurance. Manufacturing, they own part of the Coca-Cola Company at 9.3%. Kraft Heinz, they own 26.9%. BYD Auto, they own 4.9%. Louisiana Pacific, they own 8.1%. And Hyco, they own 1.3%. Telecommunications, they own part of SiriusXM at 35.4%. VeriSign at 14%. T-Mobile US at 0.4%. And Charter Communications at 1.5%. Charter now goes by the name Spectrum. But yeah. I think that's right. Yeah. Rebranded, services branded as Spectrum. But telephone, internet, radio, computer technology, Apple, they own 2%. Amazon.com, they own 0.1%. Petroleum, they own Chevron Corporation, 6.6% of it. Occidental Petroleum, of which they own 28.2%. Diversified, Mitsubishi, they own 8.9% of. Itochu at 7.5%. Mitsui at 8.4%. Marubeni at 8.5%. And Sumitomo Group at 8.4%. And other. Kroger, 6.9%. DaVita at 43.6%. Domino's, 6.9%. Pool Corporation at 1.6%. NVR Incorporated, 0.4%. In addition to these equity positions, the company had $325 billion in cash and cash equivalents. Corporate affairs, financials, the employees. See, they try to keep their employees. They don't try to cut them constantly. So, yeah. A lot of companies are like, let's cut and make more money. Doesn't really seem to be Berkshire Hathaway's style as far as Warren Buffett's concerned. And even with this, they're still making more and more money. Hand over fist. They got the 1 year where they lost money, but yeah. They've had some thin net income years. Total assets. But yeah, that gives us a nice look at who Warren Buffett is, his company, what he's involved in. And just remember, Berkshire Hathaway just started out as a textiles manufacturer. So yeah. Now they're in a number of different businesses. So, but that is our look at who has probably been the most human of these wealthy monsters. So far. Because at least he's like, yeah, it's kind of hard to have a healthy, strong economy if you have a consumer base that has no money. They've got to have money to spend. And there's just some things that are right. Tax the rich. It just makes sense. So, but we'll go ahead and end this episode here. It's already been a long one. As always, educate thyself, think, read, study, learn. Someone tells you something you have trouble believing, ask them to cite their sources. I'll be putting my sources and links in the description box below the video. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all in the next one. Until then, later.